Boom! So, we see you watching, Pauline. We see Malcolm using the informations. So, it's either you and your constitutional lawyers that are listening, double confirming everything that I laid out, right? Can't prove a single thing wrong, right? Established this very clearly at law, right? A conspiracy has happened to undermine or insurrect the Constitution, and there are players that are sitting next to you in the Parliament that are directly involved, and a Section 44 offence has occurred. What is one's allegiance if one serves foreign monetary powers instead of their peoples, even if they borrow from foreign monetary powers? And what about this big scam of undermining the people with corporations and setting up all of these usufructs with the ability to mine what land? Private land now. Private land, Pauline. And how does that affect the usufruct of the Commonwealth, Pauline? What about this profit of prondra and all of that stuff if it's in private hands, Pauline? What if we privatise everything into Aboriginal corporations, have we now, at the guise of this conspiracy at law, wherein they sought to undermine, infiltrate and put to demise the very Constitution itself, wherein naked owners had already defined themselves on the court record and been through hell, Pauline. Now, I want to make this very clear to you, Pauline. Very, 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 very clear to you, Pauline, because I'm directing this at you very specifically, Pauline, as Senator Pauline Hanson, as Senator of the Australian Parliament, the Australian Government, inside the big house on top of the hill there we call Capitol Hill, above the old Parliament House Museum, where you reside to speak the law, Pauline. Now, I just want to start by saying that Matthew Reason of the Fixated Persons Unit of New South Wales took it upon himself to call to arms 6 other police forces in a bid to attack us and define us as terrorists before the law, Pauline. Terrorists before the law, Pauline. And this is the very same lineage of police that allowed a full act of terrorism to occur in front of Old Parliament House, Pauline. Old Parliament House, Pauline. And we've demonstrated how all of this links together, Pauline, and how this is a direct conspiracy and attack against the very Constitution itself, Pauline, like they've done with their Republican model since the Menzies model of 1939, Pauline. All of this been proven on the court record, Pauline, that a sovereign right has been put in the ground and that there are curial rights at play here. And these rights define very specific criminal offences that have occurred, Pauline, on top of these national offences about undermining a referendum and then undermining a constitution. They're national offences of treachery and treason, and there are specific criminal violations in relation to the way that this Attorney General of Australia, Pauline, this Attorney General of Australia, of the Australian Labor Party, has laid out this failed referendum, in that he has not specified any change to the Constitution by defining any words that he wishes to change in the Constitution. He garbled a whole sentence off, but never told anybody exactly where in the Constitution this was going to go, Pauline. And is there a threat of the removal of executive branch government to be replaced by this voice, Pauline? Because that would be a usurpation at law called treason, Pauline. Treason. High treason, Pauline. That's like a serious offence under King v. Casement 1917. And you've got two curial powers on the table at which they have sought to defraud, Pauline. They are neither of those curial powers at law, and they've sought to undermine the very Constitution with the help of one of those curial powers that's merely an administrator and not the naked owner of the Constitution itself. At law, Pauline. At law, Pauline. And this is the harsh reality. It doesn't matter whether you step left, it doesn't matter whether you step right. You're already broken the criminal code. You're already war criminals at international law for the things that you've done. And the law says one thing in relation to this matter, and it's a biblical thing: forgive them, for they know not what they do. And the unfortunate thing is that we have put down over 15 years evidences that demonstrate you know exactly what you do. Now, there are certain actions by certain players in the parliament, like yourself, Pauline, that would demonstrate that you are staunchly against committing any criminal offence within administration whatsoever. And that is why we've chosen you as the butt end of all of these accusations, because we wholly believe that you have not committed any war crimes while in the office of administration. This is why we have put this before yourself. We understand that there are criminal parties across all parties that go back to the war in Syria, the war in Afghanistan, and the links to a foreign curial power and a priest that was let go. A cardinal, if I remember correctly. So this all linked together, Pauline, and we're not blind to it. We've actually got our eyes wide open to the actual criminal offences and eugenics that have been put into play by foreign curial powers on this land in the belief that they could get away with it, Pauline. In the belief that they could get away with it. Why is Dutton now wanting a second stab at the voice? Is it because he realises that in the curial power that's been laid down on the Supreme Court record of New South Wales, he's a war criminal for being the Home Affairs egghead? Didn't he work with that idiot Christian Porter in Human Services? And didn't Christian Porter go running off to the synagogue, Pauline? Running off to the synagogue. Help me, install a discrimination bill. I can't do that. Section 116 of the Constitution, Christian Porter. Remember that stuff. This has been going on a long time, Pauline, long time. You seem to think that this is new. No. This has been going on since Quentin Bryce, Pauline, keeping you to account to the point now where it's unfortunate for all of you, but you all committed international criminal offences along the way, and you were warned beforehand. Totally warned beforehand. And the people are starting to realise this conundrum that you might all be in Parliament, having been put in a position of international criminal offences, Pauline. International criminal offences, Pauline. And we make no excuses and make no mistake now stepping forward, because we aren't afraid anymore. We've given this whole entire world lifting of the veil, so to speak, for so many people, in that you treat them like plebs from your patrician roles there in the government, and the working class you never allow to actually gain any wealth. And Lydia's right in these respects, where us, the naked owners, Aborigine and constitutional Australia, have been screwed by you patricians in that parliament. And you committed heinous international criminal offences trying to look after the people as children and lunatics of state, right? And you never allowed them to be free of that world, while you kept that hidden world from them. That hidden world from them, isn't that right? Ba-betty, betty, 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 ba-ba-ba-ba-betty, ba-ba-ba-betty. Isn't that what we should call you now? Ba-ba-ba-betty, because you bar the government line. Got to bar the rebel without a cause line. See what camp? That's a camp, Pauline. That's a camp. Just like the Lydia camp. Except they're not, what do you call them? Activists. Now, I'm going to point out something to you, Pauline, about this Lydia activism, right? Have you noticed that she plays the same role every single time? Drop down to the knees, act like she's being oppressed, even though the police might talk nicely to her, and she's playing the police into her hands, and then she gets on her knees and crawls across, and then she drags that flag around like it's Linus and his little blankie and Peanuts, and then she gets up on her feet and has a little sobby, and then storms off with a little blankie in her hand, right? It's a play. You watch it every single time, Pauline, over and over and over and over again. It's a play. It's kind of like a scripted play for all of the greeny masses to donate to the poor little woman. It's a beggar. She's on her knees doing the begging, Pauline, and it's so obvious in front of everyone right now, having had it repeated so many times over and over and over again, knowing where this agenda actually comes from at law. And this is where we get to this point, Pauline. It doesn't matter whether you step to the left or jump to the right. All right, so we can play the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And the Horror Picture Show is your Horror Picture Show, Pauline. All of you like finally being caught up in all of your criminal offences at law. All of your criminal offences at law. Because my men, they're the ones that have recognised what's going on, Pauline. And they can carry on in my name now, Pauline. That's the whole idea, isn't it, for men, people in self-determination to carry on in the name of something. In the name of something, might be those Anzac and that Stone of Remembrance, Pauline, that caught you out for who you work for and the line of authority that has existed. And the warnings that were given to all of you over the last 15 years, not in that we would attack you or threaten you, in that you were going to fuck everything up and cause what you're seeing right in front of you at your own ignorances, at your very own ignorances. And this is now being proven true when you go before the Parliament over a voice and can't define how you're going to change the Constitution, and the Attorney General himself has opened himself up to treason charges in the High Court merely by not being specific enough about a legal document that we as the Crown, Pauline, the Australian Imperial Crown, have researched very, very well and know very, very well and know exactly what you're doing in the undermining of our gods, trying to replace our gods in our constitution with foreign gods. Instead of helping those people self-determine, you want to control the mining interests of the constitution instead of helping Aboriginal people. And this is the direct accusation now, Pauline. You're being caught the fuck out. You're being caught the fuck out. And that's the simple answer to everyone. You're starting to realise it now as you've all been played, and you all gave your money to these suckers. These are the ones that ask you for donations to climate change and greeny stupidity. They're communists that have now finally been caught out trying to undermine your very constitution. And this is what Albo's connected to. This is what Peter Dutton's connected to. Because Peter Dutton would not try for a second constitutional change in a referendum if he wasn't scared that something real existed in that Australian Imperial Crown, where we stand up and hold our constitution in our world and say to all of you, it's our constitution in our world, under our line of authority, in our crown, and we will fill its constitutional duties, at which you are failed administrators, war criminals at the end of usufruct, and unable to keep command of anything by your direct failures that have been demonstrated to you in multiple areas of where you should have command, including the military, the police, the AFP, and that Parliament, Pauline. You failed to stop a Senate clearing of this referendum. I mean, the Senate allowed this referendum to even take place without any foundations in constitutional law. And your constitutional lawyers have all been caught out lying or being totally ignorant of the very Constitution they're supposed to know about, Pauline. They're supposed to know about, Pauline. So this is now to the point where there's a direct accusation. You're a bunch of criminals, Pauline. And this isn't going to stop. The people have woken up. They're no longer woke to the stupid reality that you seed into their brains, Pauline, that you seed into their brains. You've actually been caught out by the police seeding that into the internet, Pauline. So it's kind of obvious who you work for and what's going on and how you've been caught out. It's just a shame that Lydia had to go and commit heinous treasonous offences and meddle with a parliament that was of no concern to her, and fail to look at the actual usufruct and the rules that were on the table. And greed saw them go for corporations and defrauding the people out of money to buy land and then abuse that privilege of taking people's land in large numbers and then twist the state to give away land, Pauline, and close the National Parks Trust and give it to the Aborigines, Pauline. Like, there's a direct conspiracy at law that you may or may not get away with, but at some point you're going to realise that there's a whole entire country that have just woken up to the fact of what you've all done. And this is going to spread like wildfire, because this is the actual truth of the matter on the court legal record that can all be stood up, defended for, and proof of action already laid down in all of these videos, Pauline. There's really nothing you can do about criminal offences you're all being party to, including Albo and the Attorney General and the entire Senate for allowing this referendum to take place. And if we have to stand all the way up to this High Court in all of this, Pauline, because now I put my name to all of this, don't I? In the front of all of these people that asked me to put my name forward on their behalf. On their behalf, Pauline. On their behalf. Right? And this is where you have a stark problem, knowing that I'm not talking bullshit in any of these videos. Am I, Pauline? Bunch of criminals in that parliament taking your privilege too far. And you got black privilege mocking white privilege when it's all the same privilege, Pauline. It's all the same privilege. Treating these people like the working class, feeding them their paper money, never allowing them to get out of poverty, because that's what you do, isn't it, Pauline? That's what you do there. It's a con, it's a scam, and the moment you turn to eugenics for your answers, you became the most heinous crime against humanity that ever occurred on this entire planet in its entire 60,000 year history of whatever they believe's their history, when we can talk about a 300,000 year history, Pauline, a 300,000 year history that you wiped out of existence in 1939 to preach your communist bullshit across the world. Trick everybody into believing they were serfs to the United Nations instead of the free people to gods they were before you enslaved them all in this world, Pauline, and treated them like plebs from your patrician seats. Your patrician seats with your gods, Pauline. And this is a problem, isn't it? I didn't lie to them, did I, Pauline? I didn't lie to them. You've been treating them like serfs and slaves this entire time, Pauline. Entire time. Under a foreign oath. At the peril of your life, Pauline. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. I think you do know what you did. And I think you're using it. I think you're using it to try and not commit war crimes. But I think you're witnessing war crimes all around you, Pauline. And I think you've now realised that we, the actual people of the Constitution, not the lunatics, not the paupers that are in the pauperisms that need to be policed because of their pauperisms. No, we woke up, Pauline, to realise what you're supposed to do in that parliament, and that's one thing.
clean up all this criminal activity that's been pointed out to you. It's time to bring the AFP in. It's time to bring Interpol in. It's time to bring all of the drug fucking task forces in and work out whether they work for the system or against it, Pauline. Where do you think half of this stuff's coming from? The states, Pauline. The states. Got to undermine the pauperisms. Keep them poor, Pauline. Got to undermine pauperisms to keep them poor. Well, we ain't poor, Pauline. We're just broke. There's a very, very big difference. We're broken. And we can fix broken by realising what you are and the rules that are on the table and the law that surrounds this entire game. And as we gain our traction, Pauline, and start to actually physically file in those courtrooms, Pauline, in those courtrooms, Pauline, because this is the one thing I want to make you aware of in this whole debacle. Have you ever seen me do politics, Pauline? Have you ever seen me do politics? What did I say to Paul Farrell? I haven't even sold a flag in 15 years. Do you know how much profit I've made out of playing this game? Zero, Pauline. Zero. All of it went into playing this game. I gave up my whole entire world to play this game, and I've made zero profit from it, Pauline, because I know. You can even ask the District Court of Queensland. What did I walk away from, Pauline? I won 25 grand because those Queensland police are corrupt, and I didn't take the 25 grand, did I, Pauline? Because that would have put a burden on the state of Queensland, wouldn't it, Pauline? That would have put a burden on the state of Queensland. That's why Betty talks about those working conditions. All those workers are a burden on the state, being paid in their RBA notes, And
So, coming from those courtrooms, Pauline, those courtrooms, you know, where judges make decisions and define facts and stuff, you know, not like in politics where you constantly lie and tell mistruths and try and manipulate the parliament floor among a bunch of ignorant politicians, where career politicians that are patricians seem to hold it over the working class because of their pauperisms, Pauline. And this is the reality. Got caught the fuck out, haven't you? You all got caught out at your game, and you've all known this for a long time, because 15 years ago I warned you that you would end up in this situation that you're all in today. 15 years ago I stood up and made you aware that this was a collapsing economy that couldn't revive itself, and that you were walking into the demise of everything. And that's where we had to stand up and say we are the Australian Imperial Crown on the court record back in 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2015, 2020, 2021 and 2022, Pauline. Now, all these times have we defined who we are and informed Attorney General after Attorney General, and informed Prime Minister after Prime Minister, and informed Solicitor General after Solicitor General, and informed Governor General after Governor General, Pauline, and you've all ignored the naked owner of the very constitution at which you administer under the Hague Conventions, under international law, Pauline, under international law. And it took a justice of the Supreme Court to define it on the court record so that you would stop acting in the way that you have. And now that that's been defined, it's very clear that you seek to undermine that constitution with an Aboriginal voice to remove the executive branch of what is our constitution. Now, as the Speaker for my peoples, Pauline, the Speaker for my peoples, the one with a fiduciary interest for my peoples, I kind of say to you that it's not your constitution, and my peoples will just ignore your changes and carry on without you. And this is the division of Australia that you seek to gain in a way in which you push
our side of the fence into belligerence while watching the other side of the fence actually commit serious, treasonous and terrorist actions against the state and the Constitution, Pauline. It is very clear. And you can't excuse one side of this because they're factionally more powerful from the other side, because you accused us of being terrorists and we went through hell proving to you our curial right and the fact that it's impossible for you to call the naked owner a terrorist of his very own constitution, Pauline. This was the impossibility pointed out by Justice Lonergan. And this is where you're getting to, Pauline. You can't undo that at law, and you can't play politics with the law. And you better start understanding that the law already defined on the courtroom record, and we're speaking it very loud, very, very loud from our non-burdenous position on the state, because we're not a burden on the state, are we, Pauline? We realised who we are, we realised we're not lost in your holy seas anymore, and we returneth home at law, at international law, under the rules of self-determination, wherein that was defined on the courtroom record, Pauline. The courtroom record, Pauline. And this is where we look at a terrorist act by people seeking to be sovereign without going through self-determinable process and having that recognised in any way, shape or form in any judicial process on the planet. They failed, Pauline, and sought to undermine and do this instead when we succeeded and defined our curial right in the very legal document that you as an administrative and foreign curial power seek to undermine right now. Seek to undermine right now, Pauline. That's a direct act of war, Pauline, from an administrative position on the people you administer. That's a direct act of apartheid at which you've been caught out at as well. These are criminal offences wherein you've allowed Lydia to go outside section 44.2, treason and her allegiance to her activism rather than the constitution at which she is under oath to serve. To serve, Pauline. To serve at a very high duty, Pauline. And this could be said of the Attorney General of Australia that has allowed this to occur, Pauline. Allowed this to occur. Don't make any mistake in the matter that he is not excused from his criminal offences. We watch every action that is made and prepare and advise all the people that you are a bunch of criminals attempting to undermine the Constitution to protect yourselves from the very war crimes that you have indeed committed and now being caught out at. And you think that a Constitution is going to change the fact that you are being pointed out for those criminal offences. It matters not, because we can reverse those things, knowing who you are and knowing what you have done.